Well, we have covered a lot of ground, 5 very interesting presentations, and we have now perhaps half an hour for further discussion. I do want to say, I mean, we are looking at a very contemporary issue, very contemporary problems, and although all contemporary problems arise from tortured and contested histories, I think none of us are going to solve the historical problems and historical contentions in a seminar like this. I think what we're all trying to look at is what can be done, what the diplomats can do, what the military can do, what our foreign policy should be, and what we can do to create a situation that can resolve some of these problems. But the problems are many, and I'm sure you all have questions relating to many of them. I would like to pick up on what Akil Shah was saying earlier, and as I mentioned, there are people in the audience who asked particularly about Balochistan. So could I identify the speakers, the people? You were one of them, sir, and there was one other. Yes, okay. Could you, if it's on Balochistan, I'd like to cover that. Yeah?
Balochistan as well as Kashmir. I am from a family who migrated in 1947 from Srinagar. And I've studied in Balochistan from 1975 to 1982 in the medical school and doctor by profession. So what I've observed there over 7 years of my stay, that the state actors were quite harsh in dealing with the Baloch people, and there was ongoing intervention by the defense agencies. But on the other hand, what I have learned from those people, they are very simple people, and they want to stay in peace. And this is what was the issue in Jammu Kashmir. And I've just spoken to quite a few of ladies here who come from Jammu or from non-Muslim background. And all of them are in agreement that we should live peacefully together. It's the foreign interventions, and from all sides. With due apologies, I would like to say that the first intervention that came into Pakistan was in 1958, and the evidence that has been suggested by Mr. Ayub Khan, that time president, that it was the members of the diplomatic corps of the United States who enforced him to bring about martial law while there was a civil system functioning. So I think we need to look everything into perspectives, and we cannot break away from the perspective. Similarly, the Taliban movement has been generated with the Russian intervention in Afghanistan. And at that time in point, Taliban were the blue-eyed boys of the West. Today they are very bad. So I think we should be taking rationally to things, and for promoting peace, I think we should work together to bring peace and harmony in the region. This is my humble submission.
Thank you. Yes?
Yes, Balochistan was granted independence 1 or 2 days before the Pakistan was granted independence, and Balochistan was recognized as an independent state by the Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Can we make history brief?
Yes. Then coming to the point, Balochistan is occupied land. Even as a Pakistan as occupying power or occupier has a responsibility toward the people who the Pakistan has occupied. Pakistan failed to protect the Baloch right and property, and life and property. Do you think that Pakistan still have a legitimacy to govern the Balochistan? And the second point, just a comment I'm trying to make. Balochistan struggle for independence is homegrown struggle. It is not foreign intervention or whatsoever. It is a desire of the people to be free and to be independent and decide their future by themselves. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, it's true, isn't it, that you referred to atrocities in Balochistan, the suppression of protest in Balochistan, and that goes back to Bhutto's time as well, and Ayub Khan's time. Is Balochistan still a special case in the relationship of government to the provincial electorates? I'd like to ask you both.
Oh.
No, after you.
Yes, I think they see Balochistan as a, let's call it a strategic kind of backyard, or strategically pivotal with, important natural resources like gas. And any challenges to the Pakistani kind of definition of nationalism is a threat that the military thinks is a threat and is being sponsored by India. I have no proof, but I would like the Pakistani government to be more assertive and aggressive in producing the evidence against India, because the dossiers that they've been sending around the world are not really evidence. So yes, the Balochistan has been seen as this province which has always contested Pakistani sovereignty over itself because of its historically contentious incorporation into Pakistan. Yes, there have been moments in the past when the Pakistani state attacked and tried to suppress the Baloch. But I don't think we have seen the kind of dirty war tactics that the military is using in terms of just randomly disappearing people, poets, teachers. There was the case of a book publisher, bookseller, Zahid Baloch, I believe. He's gone. And you should read the letter written by his daughter. It'll make you cry in dawn. And the title of that the title of her blog or letter is, "Forgive me, Daddy, I'm your useless daughter." So the human dimension of this conflict is really crucial. We can't just say, well, all states use violence against groups or subnational groups that challenge their sovereignty. That doesn't really mean anything to the Baloch who's being tortured as we speak in some dungeon, in some MI or ISI or FC dungeon right as we speak. So to me, the human rights angle, for which the Pakistan military intelligence agency, the Frontier Corps, which is also run by the military, de facto run by the military, have really committed gross crimes against the Baloch people with impunity. And they know they can get away with murder. So that's the problem. Yes, Balochistan is seen as a trouble spot, which has resources that the Pakistani grand strategists think that everybody's out to get. But the situation is really, really horrendous. And anyone with a human conscience should really consider and look at this situation deeply and try to understand the misery and the violence and the horror that Baloch people are going through because of the Pakistani state's dirty war that they are waging, the Argentinian-style dirty war, and some in Balochistan.
Now, I think...
What about on the other side as well in Kashmir? Military interventions and putting the curfew...
Can we come
Of
to
course,
these
of
things
course.
as
But
they
we're not
arise?
discussing Kashmir right now. Absolutely.
Now,
Any state suppressing its people is wrong. I agree with you.
Thank you.
now Balochistan has the great misfortune of constituting 40% of Pakistan's land area, but only 5% of the population. And the population is scattered across a vast landmass, and much of that society is ruled by tribal chiefs who have absolute authority over the people. So it's been very underdeveloped for decades now. Per capita, Balochis get more assistance from the federal government than any other province. But it doesn't get to the people because there are so many filters along the way where there's bureaucracy and there are the tribal chiefs who all take their cut. So it's been very underdeveloped. It's the poorest province in Pakistan. And there have been previous insurgencies in the mid-70s under Bhutto. That was the army went in to crack down and suppress that attempt at independence. The fact also is that Balochistan has a population of about 50% Pakhtuns. So it's, while the Baloch areas in the south, they certainly have been resisting Pakistani sovereignty over their land, but the Pashtun areas are distinct and they're closer to the Afghan border. So there are these different aspects to it, and I obviously agree with Dr. Shah that any violence against their own people is absolutely abhorrent. But nevertheless, the Pakistani state is not going to permit Balochistan to be independent. I mean, I don't think most states in the world today would hang on to territory. I mean, that is the first compulsion of most modern states. And I'm afraid we are not as civilized as to offer them a referendum on whether they want independence or not. It's not going to happen. So the best that we can hope for is some kind of negotiated settlement, greater autonomy, more development, and so forth. But thus far, there have been various attempts, I'm told, by politicians to try and talk to the militants, and so far none of these attempts has succeeded.
Dr. Fair.
May I just, I would like to contest this idea that Balochistan is underdeveloped or the state that it's in because of tribal sardars. There are 3 tribal sardars, forget the names, Bukti. They are the problem. 98% of Baloch sardars have been proxies of Pakistan. Why is there no development in their areas?
They are corrupt as well.
Exactly, yeah.
The poor Baluchi is suffering.
Dr. Fair, do you have a comment on Balochistan?
Yeah, I did. Actually, factually, it's not true. I mean, it's misleading to say that on a per capita basis they get more than anyone else. The way the National Finance Award is done, it's based upon population. The problem is that Balochistan has only about 5% of the nation's population, and the population is disparately distributed. So this idea that somehow that even if they were given precisely the amount of resources based upon their percentage of population, it would not be enough because of the inefficiencies in delivering public goods to a population that is so disparately distributed. The other issue that I think is important to note is what many Baloch themselves note, is that, for example, the gas from Balochistan can be easily pumped to Punjab, but people who actually live in Balochistan don't have gas hookups. I mean, I actually have data on this. I don't have them with me right now. The state basically forces Balochistan to sell its gas at below market prices, whereas the gas that it purchased from Sindh is substantially bought at a higher price. And I could go on at length about the ways in which the state explicitly exploits Balochistan. And unfortunately, because they are characterized as Indian agents, they're easily dismissed by ordinary Pakistanis as somehow not being true patriots. And that's if Pakistanis even know about the dirty war that's going on in Balochistan. I'm just going to say finally, my country has an obligation to exercise Leahy amendments to any military unit that's engaging in human rights abuses. And this includes the Army, and this includes the Frontier Corps. Yet, obviously, my country has engaged both of those organizations extensively, despite the fact of their human rights abuses, not only in Balochistan, but no one's talked about this. It's not clear who in the world the Pak Army is targeting in Zarbe-Bakwas, as I call it, Operation Nonsense. They've displaced millions of Pashtuns. Their residences have been virtually permanently destroyed. And what does the Pakistan Army have to show for it? So I think my country needs to look very seriously at our legal obligation to sanction the Pakistan Army under Leahy for these abuses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mistake here, because she has talked about the American example. Americans should have taken consideration of the situation in Iran when in 1953 the government of Sadiq was a legitimately elected government was toppled, conspiracy by CIA and MI5. American regime has been involved in Chile, the government of General Pinochet was
Bringing up the history again.
No, you can't. You can't stop people. Let him speak. So I will remind her of the
Let him speak. Let him speak.
Now, I'd like to correct my Balochi, just give me 2 minutes, my Balochi friend. First of all, they talk about the accession of Balochistan. It needs to be said it's Khan of Kallar, who did not want to be a part of Pakistan. The three princely states, Makran, Las Vela, Haran, they willingly became the part of Pakistan. And Pakistani government signed this standstill agreement with Kallar state, just like India signed those standstill agreements with Hyderabad, Junagadh. And unfortunately, this is a reality that all those standstill agreements were broken by both India and Pakistan, and states were forcefully absorbed into the dominion. So first of all, this entire document of entire Balochistan wanted to be independent. This is completely wrong. It was the state of Kallar. State of Kallar under Jinnah Sahib
Right.
acceded to Pakistan.
No, I don't think we have. I don't think we have time for you to have the full. Would you, I have one more comment about. I have one more comment about Balochistan, please. A comment or a question?
I have to say a few things. Maharaj is a very good friend of mine. I just made the question whether Pakistan still has legitimacy or not. These recipes refer to Khan of Kallar. Now, I know that, and that is the broader problem with a lot of, Baloch chieftains, as Irfan Hussain mentioned. Khan of Kallar lives here. Khan of Kallar's own sons are very much, part of the fabric of that is whatever the government system is in Balochistan. They are not actually buying the very idea that Khan of Kallar is trying to sell. And that is the case with a lot of Bhuttis and Bengals and others. I mean, obviously there are problems. There are Baloch, for example, within Bhuttis, some Bhuttis are in exile, but there are some Bhuttis who are very much in the government with the worries, and that the problem is confined to this. Now, Maran cannot answer what happened, why Khan of Kallar's son went back to Pakistan. It is about the land, a few families, one thing, that is that. And Kyle, I'll come to you. You said something about Pakistan. Honest to God, with all due respect to you, all of it seems to be Google-based. I'm sure that you haven't been to Pakistan. And I'll tell you what, you declared, I know Henry Jackson Society, but you actually declared fatwa on Pakistan. Yes. You completely ignored the facts that surround the rise of Taliban. Okay? And Dr. Saab, I'm a Shia myself, I come from Pakistan. I have been, I've seen it all, how different various sectarian groups operate and all that. And I am part of that civil society in Pakistan that everyday challenges these very monsters which operate there. But they operate everywhere in the world.
I appreciate
and
that.
They haven't come, the problem exists. As you said, yes, I completely agree. But they haven't come just because of it is not some part of the conspiracy and part of the Pakistani establishment that they created something. There are international elements. As you said, we cannot go back too far in the history, but to my friend in Henry Jackson Society and to others, I mean, there has been,
Yes.
there is historical perspective to it. There has been American involvement, there has been British involvement.
Thank you very much. Yes. I don't. We have very little time left, and I don't want it all to be devoted to Balochistan. Important as it is, we have posed the question whether Pakistan is a victim of terrorism or perpetrator of terrorism. There are issues that affect this country, that affect Europe, that affect the whole world. Apart from Balochistan and Pakistan itself. And I wonder if we could have some questions or comments relating to that, both from the audience and from the members of the panel.
Because you've got a house burning next door when the Soviet invasion started. And we cannot take away the whole terrorism debate without understanding that the American influence in the region was manifold at that point of time. And that's where the terrorism debate had started. Americans use proxies, so what it is all about, there is any situation, it's not a good thing. If Americans do it, just Dr. Akil, for God's sake, let me finish. I'm not saying anything which may sort of, offend you. I'm just trying to present a perspective, basically. And now coming down to the future, we have repeated history, forget the history. What Afghanistan is doing at this point of time? Exactly. They are becoming a proxy for India. They are becoming a proxy for America against Pakistan. They live next door to each other. Whatever happens, you people who are there as opinion makers, they have to, Excuse me?
What have they done against Pakistan?
They have not done against Pakistan. What Pakistan has done against them? Pakistan has a 1.1 million.
Could we this?
Yes, I am a traitor, yaar. Bas khatam karo baat. You people like Christine Fair, people.
Look, you have had a chance to speak. Can you allow somebody else to speak, please?
What is this? People like you, people like Christine Fair. What is this nonsense?
No, what is it? The issue
What are you people like you? What does that mean?
Please, can we have another question?
Next Parliament.
Yes, I am. Yes.
You've had a chance. Please, can you sit down?
I started with the assumption. I told you what I was going to talk about. So,
Please. Yes, sir.
I need to let the Afghan man speak.
All right.
Can we get some order back in here, please? Yes, sure. Please. Thank you.
Okay, quick point. I think quite a lot of this has been quite partial, and a lot of it has been harking back to the history and the legacy. We all understand the legacy and the history. I think an interesting question is whether there has been a change in the mindset. I know the Pakistan Army a lot. I live there, and I have a lot of military friends. I think there's been a genuine change in the mindset of the Pakistan military since the attack on the school and the National Action Plan. It is a monstrously huge task to change that mindset and change the policy and execute the National Action Plan. That will take a long time, and you cannot do it all at once. You cannot go to war against the Afghan Taliban or Lashkar-e-Taiba straight away. That is a very long-term change of policy and change of mindset, and what we ought to be all doing is supporting Pakistan in that monstrously huge task of attacking extremism and not bashing Pakistan for the legacy.
Thank you. We have a comment from Afghan here, I think.
Yeah, as an Afghan, I would like to answer you, and you've worked in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. I've just returned from Afghanistan just a few weeks ago.
We are the real victims.
Afghanistan has been on rise, so Pakistan is trying its best to fail the Afghan state. So Pakistan, if we can say the biggest victim of war, terrorism in the world is Afghanistan, and Pakistan, ISI, is responsible for that.
Yeah.
The Haqqani network, Haqqani lives in Pakistan. We can provide the addresses. Bin Laden was found in Pakistan. And we can provide the address for Mullah Fadlullah. I can give you all the addresses.
Would you like to comment on that?
Look, I understand that international powers have been involved in Pakistan. The United States is as much guilty of propping up the Pakistan military as anyone else. The Pakistan military has become the 800-pound gorilla in the room, partly or to a large extent because it has received, successively received injections from the United States, and it's pouncing on everyone else. There isn't a dictator in Pakistan that the US hasn't been in love with. Now, setting that aside, let's also not forget that for the US involvement, Pakistan also got billions of dollars. The F-16s that you fly, that you take so much pride in and cannot live without, come from the United States. So yes, there are problems with what the US is doing. There are problems with what the Pakistan is doing. Nobody is here to bash Pakistan. What I'm saying is, who is asking them to go and attack Muridke? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about starting with building confidence in this idea that we are serious. If they are serious about tackling terrorism, let's get Hafiz Saeed to shut up. You know, when there is an Indian, I was watching Pakistani TV, Indian election was up, and who they had as an analyst on Indian election? Hafiz Saeed, for God's sake.
Christine, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, I really do want to take, head on and really side here with Professor Akil Shah against this idea that there has been this...
People like us, people like you and me. Right? Yeah.
The onus, actually, I'm talking. You had a chance.
No, I was just.
So if we take a look at, for example, Lashkar-e-Taiba, which now operate under the name of Jamaat al-Dawa and also FIF, we actually find that footprint of that organization is expanding. It's not retracting. So if you're going to argue there's been this we should at least see some willingness of the state to shrink the space in which that group in particular operates. If you look at the various videos, as well as on their social media, you will see that the Pakistani state provides security to Hafiz Saeed. In addition, let's talk about Zarb-e Bagwas, or Zarb-e Azab, which I'm sure you prefer to call it. They undertook this operation only because the Americans were howling at them to do so, and actually put $300 million in coalition support funds as the ransom. They undertook that operation only after they relocated all significant Haqqanis of any consequence to safe houses in Quram, Islamabad, and Rawalpindi. I could go on and detail the expanded footprint, not the contracted footprint, of every terrorist organization operating in and from Pakistan. So it is just not true. Moreover, I want to pick up on what Aqil Shah has said. Not only does the terrorist activities continue, the state has actually given a wider platform to these militant groups to become political entrepreneurs. When the state wanted to take a punga with India, they sent FIF with a bunch of so-called humanitarian relief goods to the border with India on Indian-administered Kashmir, and of course they weren't allowed to go in. Hafiz Saeed actually registered a case at the Lahore Supreme Court demanding that Nawaz Sharif take this issue of Kashmir to the United Nations. I could go on at length, sir. There is simply no evidence that the National Action Plan is anything but a no-action plan. And there is simply no evidence that business is as usual. And I'm going to take as a final point Afghanistan. The Pakistanis have considerable control over the Taliban. And yet, we see Afghanistan becoming ever more violent, and terrain is being ever more lost to the Taliban thanks to Pakistan. So you have a lot of evidence to bring to the party to counteract or to countervail the evidence that Aqil and I have brought to the party.
We have about 5 minutes left. I'd like to give an opportunity to each of the speakers to make a closing comment, if we may. But first of all, you have a question?
My community was forced to leave their homes overnight. And it was the seventh exodus that happened in 1990, not the first. So it's not a recent phenomenon of finishing off the minorities in the state. Now, interestingly enough, the people in Srinagar were left, the Muslims there, play the minority and the majority card effectively well. So when it is convenient, they're the majority. When it is convenient, they're the minority. Not worrying even one bit, even the most recent, I've just returned from Jammu. Interestingly, the Hindus are continuing to be threatened and attacked and killed. They are being attacked even now. What happened in 1990 during the post-exodus is now being repeated yet again after the Burhan, which is 60-odd days of conflict that is continuing in the state, is still continuing, and guess who is suffering the most? The Hindus. Now there is not going to be even those 400 families that have remained. I would like to know why aren't the Hindu community talked about in context of Srinagar? Why is it always the plight of our other side? Which other side, my dear friend, were you talking about? There is the other side that never gets talked about. The world has remained silent 27 years. The convenient thing is that let generations pass, their children will forget what happened to people and parents in 1990. Their children will grow out of it. They will move out into another part
Okay,
of the world,
thank you.
Then there is no
Thank you. You have made your point. Thank you. The back.